The recommendation is for consideration and possible approval to postpone the construction of Fort Bend ISD Elementary School number 46 pending the outcome of a comprehensive study of all Fort Bend ISD Elementary School boundaries. The summary is regarding the planned construction of Elementary 46 to be opened in August 2014. The administration recommends the following. First, postpone the construction of Elementary 46 pending completion of the work outlined below. Immediately develop and publicly share a timeline for the work outlined below. Immediately issue an RFP for a district demographer for board approval in a timely manner. Immediately begin to prepare scenarios based on existing demographic data to demonstrate how the district may be rezoned to more effectively utilize existing elementary schools. The scenarios would be vetted once a contract for district demographer is approved by the board. Create and convene a district-wide elementary school boundary study team to advise the administration on redrawing all elementary boundaries to best utilize existing schools. The work of this group would be shared publicly online and at community forums to gather feedback from stakeholders throughout the district before recommendations would be brought to the board for consideration. The administration will provide regular updates to the board during the process. The work of this committee would also be informed by the previously authorized facility study that is currently underway. Work with the principals of all schools currently over capacity to develop interim plans to support their effective and efficient operations during this process and the implementation of resulting decisions. Perform a review and update of board policy and administrative procedures that govern the creation and maintenance of school boundaries. And the recommendation is by Mr. Dupree. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve is present.
We have a motion by Mr. Dave Rosenthal, a second by Mrs. Jenny Bailey. Do we have discussion?
Yes. I think over the years, this has been going on for a year and a half now. So I really think that this is probably a really good time to wrap our arms around this and reevaluate the whole program like Dr. Dupree has suggested. So I really think it's probably, there's a number of factors involved as far as why we'd want to do it, but it's just the right thing to do at this time.
Any other comments, Mrs. Holmbaum?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts or questions or concerns, and my biggest concern is the 1,100 kids at Oakland, and we've discussed this. I understand that I'm all for the rezoning thing. That's not the question. I'm not quite clear why 46 wouldn't be involved in that whole plan of restructuring because the school is going to be needed there. Oakland's going to have that relief. There's going to be that development that's going to eventually have 4,400 homes in it. So to me, there's no question about the need for the school. The when, it could certainly be a question, and I get the facilities thing and everything going on, and I agree with all of that. I just want to know where in 2014 those kids are going to go, because Oakland cannot continue to add students, and it's just not fair to the kids and to the staff. So that's my concern. That's what I want to know. Answer that to me, and then I can move forward.
Well, I think the answer resides in the fact what we're going to have to do is really get in with the principal and understand what their needs are. As you know, you've been in the district a long time. With faster growth, there's been periods where we've run some of our schools at double capacity during times. We don't think that's ever ideal. But so our goal would be to put in the number of staff, administrators, extra buildings, whatever we would need to do to be able to make that principal and her team feel very comfortable and confident that they can keep doing school in a way that's going to keep having and enabling students to have high achievement in that school, have a high quality learning environment. And I think, and again, as you and I have discussed a little bit, I know this is your major concern. And I do think that the time to postpone is now, primarily because we are at a place where we've got to look broad brush at the entire district. I think that's the biggest thing I'm hearing from day one in my listening tour, is the idea that we don't want any more money spent until we know we're using our facilities and you can demonstrate that to the community. So I think we do. So I want to come back to your specific question. So I'm departing a little bit, but the idea is that I want to be able to look long range, knowing we're going to need the community support for future bonds, probably within a year or two, because we know we're going to need new schools in that area and other regions of the district as well. But my commitment is truly that we will work and do everything we need to do in working closely with the campus staff, not just what we believe needs to be done, but what they and their community believe needs to be done to support a high quality learning environment.
And that would be for the 2013-14 school year. And then we come to 2014 when all of this process had taken place and kids are rezoned, and so Oakland would get a break in 2014 school year, I'm assuming.
Well, you're referring to, so at this point, if we continue down the path of building the school right now, let's just say we're not. Okay, so 2013, they go as is with help, like you've mentioned. And during that time, we're going through the redistricting, the rezoning process, all that's happening, so that come hopefully January at the latest of 2014, we have a plan so that it can be presented. That would be around that time frame. Okay. That would be the hope. Be presented to parents and everyone for the 2014 school year, for the 2014-15 school year. That would be ideal. We would hope to accomplish that.
So we would move some students out of Oakland from the rezoning at that point, and they would go to other campuses when the shuffling is all settled. And then we open 46, and they're going to be moved again. Well, that's my concern.
Well, but let me clarify. Part of the plan is truly to be able to lay out, not just, again, I want to come back to one of the things that was spoken of earlier. We're not talking about a short-term rezoning. My expectation would be that when we go through this process, we have a 5 to 7 year picture that says this is when 46 would open, this is when 47 would open, this would be 48. And so that parents know, whenever this is all signed, sealed, and delivered, what year that school would open and how they would be affected. Yes, students would be moved, but hopefully we would minimize the number of moves by taking a longer range approach. That's, again, one of the biggest things I keep hearing from the community is our rezoning has been done hastily without a plan for the long range. It's just moving students around, and we just need to put a stop to that.
Can you assure me that in 2014-15 school year, Oakland will not have 12 or 1,300 students?
I cannot, sitting here tonight. As we move forward with a plan, we can really work toward that. But that's I'm not in a position to make promises like that tonight.
Anybody have any comments? That's just I can't get away from the kids at Oakland. I can't. I'm really struggling with that.
Well, I appreciate that, Susan, and I think that it's the kids at Oakland, it's the principal at Oakland, it's all of the staff there, it's the taxing on the facilities, and that just getting people through the lunchroom, I'm sure, is very difficult. And the more people that are there, the more difficult it is. That being said, I really like the idea of having a plan that is intentional, that is well thought out, and that addresses a broad range of needs. And Mr. Dupree says that he will take care of Oakland Elementary and Lori Hefkin and all of her staff there and make it work for them, and we have to hold him to that and count on him to do that and know that that's going to be a priority, because that's 1,200 of our students that need to be successful. Right. And they're coming in, I don't know how many students a month that school is gaining, but it's a pretty good number. 30. And there's a lot of houses being built out there, and there are going to be more kids coming in. And perhaps Oakland Elementary isn't the only place this is happening. Perhaps there's another school, maybe this is happening at Commonwealth also. And there's other places in our district that we need to make sure we're properly supporting the principals and the staff to make sure they have what they need. And if Mr. Dupree is confident that he can support them and his administration will support them, then I think we have to hold him to that. Mm-hmm. And I would also, I also think that, well, I'll stop there. I think it's important that we have a good plan and that it's a cohesive plan, that it's a well thought out plan. As a victim in a neighborhood like Miss Fancher, my kids have been moved all around, and we go all over the place, back and forth, across the railroad tracks, across town, 2 different directions, 2 different bus barns, the whole thing. And it needs to be fixed.
I agree, and I think we're in the right position to do that with the facilities assessment going on. I think that's a big part of it. Again, that's my concern. I'm going on record as saying I want some relief for that school. It doesn't have to be a new school. It can be another school, but they deserve it. They need it. Lori's done a great job for a couple of years having an overflow there, and it's only going to continue. So that and having all of this done by mid-semester so that we can really get it out and everyone knows where their kids are going. Or I like the plan that you're going to move here and in 2 years your kid's going to go to this school. I think that's great. That'll relieve a lot of parents and everyone in the community to know what's going to happen instead of wondering what's going to happen. But just take care of my kids at Oakland.
We have plenty of time. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. I'd like to make one additional comment, and that I think is to the Department of School Administration. And I don't know who's in charge of which schools. I don't have my list in front of me, but I think I would really like to have you all be proactive in addressing the needs of these schools that we know are overcrowded, rather than the principals having to come begging to you with their action plans and their needs. If we can be proactive and say, wow, look, I can see that you've got an issue here. You're so many percent over capacity, whatever the situation is. Let's try to address things in a proactive way, rather than principals having to come asking for things and just feel that they have to sell themselves. Let's be proactive in addressing their needs.
I agree definitely with what Ms. James just said. I think that would be a definite show of support for those overcrowded campuses, that we recognize it, we support them. We don't want it to happen. Bear with us. Let us get this all done and move on down the road, but it needs to be teamwork, definitely.
Mr. Dupree. Oh, Mr. Rosenthal, go ahead.
I appreciate all the comments. One of the things that we've discussed so far, and I agree that these schools that are overcrowded, it's nothing. It's certainly not a situation that any of us want. But the same thing we've talked about overcapacity. The same thing goes for undercapacity schools. And what I just handed out were some spreadsheets and charts that I created from the information that Dr. Ginsburg gave us in our Friday update last week. And you can see it shows the effects of undercrowding on our costs. And that, we really do need to take a long-term approach to this. None of us have crystal balls. We don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. We don't know what's going to happen in a year. And a lot of these decisions over the years have been made based on projections that have been very far off. And as a result, we end up with the poster child for that, which is Heritage Rose. And I wasn't around for any of those discussions, nor was I paying attention at the time, but that's 133,000 square feet for 480 students. And do the cost per student on that. We can't afford to have these things. And I actually think that once we start looking, once we get our study back from Jacobs, I actually think we may find a way to take care of the over and the undercrowding without building in Aliana for several or many years. And I know we'll get into those discussions, so there's no need to do it now, but we need to consider that every time we open a school, and you'll see it on those charts that I provided, in 2012, the average operating cost was about $2.5 million per year. And as we start adding more and more positions. As we've stated earlier, we've added 75 teaching positions, and there's talk, we all want smaller, classrooms and whatnot. That's going to go up and up. In 2010, before all the rifts and whatnot, our average operating cost was around $3.5 million per school. So by just going and building a new school, you have to take that into account, that you're taking out of our operating budget $2.5 to $3.5 million. So you're taking it away from other schools. So I think if we can figure a way to balance these elementary schools first, then I think I think we can get away without spending that money and keeping the resources in our current classrooms in our current schools. I really believe that we need to fix what we have first and build later. And Mr. Dupree, I thank you very much for offering this agenda item. It really is common sense, and it offers us a real long-term, a commitment to long-term thinking. And it gets beyond the mentality that's happened here over the past many years. And I think this will go a long way to building the public trust and show people that we're not going to misuse our resources. So thank you very much. I'm behind you on this 100%.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to say the real key is having a long-term plan, and that we have a superintendent now that has goals and is able to look into that. And if we trust Charles, then we have to trust his judgment on this. And so I think we need to stand behind him. And I think we really need to opt for some long-range planning. We've gone so long without that. So it's a good time to shift gears.
No pressure, Mr. Dupree.
What's that?
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
We have a motion and a second. If there are no other comments, I'm just going to read the recommendation, which is, the motion is to accept the recommendation for consideration and possible approval to postpone the construction of Fort Bend ISD Elementary 46 pending the outcome of a comprehensive study of all Fort Bend ISD elementary school boundaries. So that is the motion.
Mr. President, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just, based on what I was saying about undercapacity as well, because it is just as much of a problem, that would anybody wish to add that language where in the second to the last bullet where it says work with principals of all schools currently over capacity, or maybe add and as well as under capacity?
I really think that doesn't need to be.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I think the administration will do
Let
that.
them develop that.
So that is, Mr. Dupree, there's no deadline on that. Can you tell us when you think that might be, the report will be done?
Well, the second point talks about immediately develop and publicly share a timeline for the work. So I didn't want to commit to a time until we all agreed how we were going to proceed. So we'll develop a timeline and get that back to the board so we can make that very public very soon.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, please vote. Thank you very much. Our next action item 10D, I believe, is going to be obviated by our action on 10E.
Motion to table item 10E.
F, G, and H.
Oh, it's on the agenda.
Okay,
So I'm going to skip 10D. Thank you, Parliamentarian James. And 10E.
10F.
And
10F.
I will go down to 10F, 10G.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Now,
Mr. Morris, do we have to vote to table them, or?
Those items can be withdrawn by the administration. I think they're mooted by virtue of your vote on item 10C, or you could vote collectively to table them indefinitely.
So can we, I move that we table item
I think
D.
the administration should remove them. It's Mr. Dupree's recommendation.
Based on your action to postpone the construction, the administration recommends we'll pull items E,
D?
E, F, G, and H.
Okay. All right, so that leads us to 10I.
So if the board has no objection to that,
No.
hearing none, we'll move forward to, and you included H, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Dupree?
yes, sir.
Okay. So our next